It was at the age of 6, actually. There was a show, a seminal New Zealand show actually called Governor Grey, and I played one of Governor Grey's grandchildren. However, I didn't make it onto the screen because I was cruelly cut out in the editing room. So from a young age, I learnt the harsh reality of the career. Tony Holden had done a workshop with me whilst I was at drama school, and they'd actually offered me a part then, which would have meant leaving drama school, and I said, no, I must complete my degree in my craft is very important. But they kind of, I guess they knew who I was. But that meant moving to Auckland, and it was my first full-time kind of, television gig, I guess. I had such fun there. I was lucky to be there at a brilliant time. I was working with Robin Malcolm, Tim Balm, Katie Wolfe, Peter Elliott, Jerry Brophy. It was just the creme de la creme of New Zealand acting. It was probably the best training that I could get, actually. But it takes over your life completely, and you suffer burnout, I think, and you start to just live in this microcosm, and it's not terribly healthy. And I think, after a while, you start to recycle and play the same stories over again, and you just kind of need to get out. And also, I think, if you're ambitious as an actor, you want to try doing different stuff, see if you can do different stuff. So I told them after my 3rd year that I would leave, and they gave me a whole great year of write-out, which I did all these crazy things. Caroline nearly got married and jilted someone at the altar and became a lesbian, and then got pregnant whilst being a lesbian to someone who clearly wasn't a lesbian. So I had all these really, really great write-outs. Technically it was really tricky, but it was. It was kind of like being in a theatre piece, really, because it's 10 minutes long or something, and the camera just goes around this flat. But it was quite fun, because you know when you're on and the camera's behind you, and then it might come around you, and then you're kind of watching it, and we all had to get out of the room at one point so they could do this crazy dream sequence, and then we had to kind of find it was fun. I only had 1 day a week, most of that series on Street Legal, and it was a Sunday, so I'd fly back, film, fly back to Wellington Monday morning. Felt very glamorous, but
yes.
Actually it was just exhausting. There was a lot of cruising around in cop cars and leaping out and running after crims in my high heels. And we get to drive these big police cars and do fight sequences and stuff. So all of that was really good fun, actually. Working with Mark Hadlow and Sean Duffy was amazing because they're such good comedians. Sean Duffy is the driest, funniest guy in the world, and Mark Hadlow is the best physical comedian I've ever seen. And the combination of that was also, I learnt so much from them, and it was really happy. And I know the show wasn't to everyone's taste, but I think it was made with really good heart, and we had a huge following of sort of 50+ men, which was great. They used to reenact, I'm told, things to my stepdad in the pub, scenes from the show. And not a lot of television is made for that audience, so I felt really pleased that we had a solid following. That show is actually really smart. It's funny and it's smart, and it's quite, there were sophisticated ideas all through it. So I thought it was a great show for, a kind of early teens audience. But to play in it was such fun as well, because we were playing quite wacky, really broad comedy. I had peroxided blonde hair and just ridiculous amounts of makeup and tight skirts and heels, and playing this very, very warm-hearted but really rather dizzy stepmother. Most of us on that show were ex-Shortland Street actors, and we were pretty much parodying the whole thing. but this time playing the writers, and I got to play a venal producer, shallow, not very smart, totally seduced by the glamour of the actors, but sort of passive-aggressive. She was a lot of fun.
Who's she based on? Mr Whippy?
Yeah.
Do you want to go and grab an ice cream?
We tell Olive they play the tune when the ice creams run out. That was a nice level of comedy to play, because that clearly was a comedy show, but grounded in reality. It was, and she was such a dippy character. She just needed to grow some sort of spine. I went into that outrageous set, and it was season 6, and those guys are so well versed in what they're doing, and they're a complete family. But they were incredibly welcoming, and I thought the only way I'm going to survive this is if I go in 150% and just barrel on in there, because these guys all know what they're doing. And I think they really appreciated a new kind of blast of energy, because that's the good thing about being a guest character, is you can come in, your role basically is come in, shake the place up, and then you leave the main characters to deal with it. And I think they just really responded to having this big shot of new energy, and then I sort of cruise off, and they get, their story, they get on with the story. There was such heart on that set, and everyone in the crew, there was this really strong feeling that we were all trying to make a good thing. That story mishandled could have been awful, but because Rob Sarkis was at the helm, it was never going to be that, and he just about killed himself trying to make it brilliant, and I think he did do a brilliant job. Technically it was really hard because I only had a few days on that shoot, and they were incredibly interspersed, and because my story was so heightened, it was the shooting of a child and the response to that continuing, but they were shot weeks apart, some of those scenes. That was really a technical challenge for me to get back into that zone, and then come back to Auckland, live a normal life, go back to Dunedin and get back into that zone again. I think the look of it was incredibly filmic, actually, and it was ambitious in that it was trying to create a world that doesn't exist yet. It was about 10 years in the future, and a nice way to comment on what's happening now. I thought I really liked that device. Smart. You sort of had to listen and follow it through. And my character was basically the comic relief a lot of the time, because she was such a desperate housewife. She was so uptight and wound up. But then she got her backstory, and you came to understand why that was. She'd been absolutely miserable in her former life, and I came to have quite a lot of sympathy for her, actually. That's often the trick with playing those, I think, with playing characters who could just be annoying. But, nobody is just annoying. Everyone has their story. Everyone has their vulnerabilities. And for me, that's what I often enjoy finding is, why are they like that? There must be something more than just flat what you see. We've had such a good time on that, really strong ensemble feel, and we get on, which is, great. It makes life so much more pleasant. We actually are friends. We actually do all go out for dinner now and then, and we chat and we gossip, and I think we've all been cast because we all are warm people. So, and the tone of the show is warm, and I think, the response to that, the public response that I've had has been amazing. And I think people want something that is good-hearted and warm. And the characters are flawed and they mess up and they've got their complicated lives. But at base, they're good people and they're trying to just get by and live good lives, And I think, especially at the moment, times are a bit grim and people want something that's enjoyable to watch, but it's not dumb, It's fun and it's smart. And what's been extremely interesting for me is playing someone with good self-esteem. Because she comes across as quite reserved, because she doesn't really care what people think of her. And that's quite rare, I find, for female characters on screen. So that's been really fun to play. And some people find her aloof or think, oh, she's such a bitch or whatever. But for me, it's that she doesn't need other people's approval. And so she's a slow burn, because she really doesn't mind what they think of her. It's quite liberating to play.